Welcome to another session of Lunch and Learn with Geo. We've been doing this for a while. I try to do it once a month. Lately, I've been really trying to focus on AI. Um, so, and I think that's what everybody's here for. It's captured everybody's attention. Um, just some reminders, house cleaning items. We are recording. Uh, we anticipate when we're done, it'll be put on the NWSBA website and also on YouTube. If you have any questions, please use the chat box. If you want to post a social, that's the hashtag I like. If you don't know how to post a social, talk to me later. Or maybe I'll do another AI just on that. There's going to be, for members of the NWSBA, you're going to get CLE credit here. You'll get instructions afterwards. If you're not a member of the NWSBA, I urge you to join. Otherwise, you don't get any credit here. We're here because the Code of Professional Responsibility requires us to keep up with changes, especially the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology. I don't anticipate those rules are going to change much with the advent of AI because we still have to keep up with technology. And today, I'm joined by a great panel, people that I've been having a lot of fun with lately, talking about technology. Well, talking about technology until about a year and a half ago, and then all we talk about is AI, right, boys? Jonathan Nestler, Integrated Cognition, he's the founder, but he's just wrote a book we'll talk about later. And guess what? The subject is AI. Matt Kurbis is the subscription attorney. He is well-traveled in talking about AI, especially about alternative billing systems. And Nelson Rosario, Rosario Tech Law, has always focused on technology and taught at Kent, taught blockchain technology at Kent. He hasn't done that lately, but he is our go-to guy for talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Next month, we're going to be talking about AI again. We'll get to that. But now I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to change our view. And so let's see. Jonathan, why don't you start out by telling us about your new book?
Sure. Thank you, Gio. So the book is called Infinite Counsel. When I first started writing it, it was intended to kind of be a guide on how lawyers can use AI to benefit their practice. And it kind of morphed into, as I was thinking through that topic, not only how to use AI to benefit a practice, but what the practice of law is going to look like maybe over the next 2 to 5 years if we enter an age of artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence. And I think what we'd really see in kind of the premise of that part of the book is the supply of competent legal help is going to essentially approach infinity. And so what happens to the economics of a law firm when you have infinite competent legal help enough to meet any demand for competent legal help? What role will lawyers play in a world that looks that way? So that's the second part of the book.
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know it, his book is Infinite Counsel. I'm flashing a copy of it. For some reason, I'm not. Let me get multi-speaker. How about just speaker view? Here we go. Here's a copy of his book. You can get it on Amazon.com. I would urge you to get it, especially get it now, because it's going to be, the way things are going, it's going to be outdated very soon again. I want to kick off with something you said in your book for our general discussion. You wrote that in December 25, ASI didn't exist. And with everything that's happened in the last month with the changes that have occurred with Claude co-work. Question now is, and I'm going to ask Matt, I'm going to ask you this question. Does ASI exist now? You're on mute, Matt.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were asking Jonathan first. I mean, reasonable minds can't disagree on whether artificial superintelligence exists today. I think in a narrow, like very vertical sense, I think yes, probably. I mean, again, we're all lawyers here. You know, it depends on how you define ASI, right? But if you define it as an artificial intelligence that could do something better than a human can in a particular task or subject matter, I think the answer is more likely than not yes. It's probably already here. Now, it's not, it's not like a sci-fi version of AI. It's not as cool as Terminator. Not that Terminator's cool, their AI version, or Blade Runner, right? But I say yeah. Narrowly defined or sort of broadly defined, I'd say ASI, it's here.
Okay, Nelson, the teacher in you. I'm going to bring out the teacher in you. What do you think?
Do I think artificial superintelligence exists? No. But I think I take kind of a more spiritual and fundamental view of intelligence. I don't think that any of these systems are producing anything that would approach something like wisdom or flexibility to kind of learn on the fly. Are they really good mimics at something that approximates that? Maybe, if you're not really paying attention. That would be my answer.
Okay. Jonathan, since you asked the question, all right, I'm going to circle back to you. What do you think?
I agree that it depends on how you define the terms, but I lean towards no. I think that there's sparks of general intelligence that we're seeing with the current models, especially the high-end ones. But I don't think that it's quite general intelligence yet, and I definitely don't think that we've reached super intelligence. Now, if it's just in a narrow task, yeah, there's plenty of narrow tasks that AI can do better than humans, and has been for a long time, all the way back to chess and Go. But when you're talking about thinking and acting like a reasonably capable lawyer under any given circumstance, I don't think we're quite there yet. But I think that we will be very soon. I think that there's no question that it's on the horizon.
Well, that kind of segues into the next thing I want to kick out to the panel, and that is, where is AI actually useful for a small firm right now? Matthew?
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, I am using multiple AI tools daily. At this point, I've got, I used to say I had the Holy Trinity, but I've actually got 4 that I'm using on a daily basis. Whisperflow being the most recent addition. For those of you who have not come across Whisperflow yet, I had learned about it from Ernie the attorney. And Ernie was really saying how amazing this thing it was, and I didn't believe him. But then I started to hear about Whisperflow from other like places outside of law. I was like, okay, what is this? And it's whisper without the E, Whisperflow. I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm hearing about it from Ernie, who's very tech forward and is on the cutting edge, and I'm hearing about it in all these other places, I have to try this out. So what is Whisperflow? And Whisperflow is probably the most useful AI tool, period, for especially for lawyers who have been practicing for long enough that they used to dictate or still do into a dictaphone. So Whisperflow is that AI understanding context that your secretary or paralegal would, who listens to those recordings in a dictaphone, that says, actually strike that and put this instead. Regular dictation will just dictate verbatim, we'll transcribe all of that. But what Whisperflow does is, just like a human understands the context of what you're saying, it will only transcribe what you want it to ultimately transcribe. And especially when I'm working with attorneys who have been practicing long enough that they're like, I don't want to use, whatever new software, let alone whatever new AI. Whisperflow is the go-to. And plus, it's like $12 a month. I'm still on the free version. It's hard to change habits to like start talking, but most of us talk way faster than we type. And Whisperflow, you don't have to tell it period. You don't have to tell it comma or question mark. You don't have to give it punctuation. It really understands it. And then, just like with a text expander, if anyone's used text expander or some of their competitors, you type a couple of keys and you press space and it puts out the thing that you programmed. Well, with Whisperflow, you could program it to say, put in my work address, and it will put in your work address. You don't have to actually type it out or spell it out or say it. It will just put in your work address. And you could do this with, you can save your prompts this way. Put in this prompt, apply my mutual non-disclosure agreement playbook, right? Boom, it'll put in that prompt into that AI tool, right? So like Whisperflow, hands down, most useful tool across the board, agnostic to practice area. But the Notebook LM Pro, Paxton AI, and Perplexity are my other, the rest of the,
I know
that's rounding out
you're
the
a
other
big
ones.
advocate of Paxton. But with Whisperflow, does that then integrate with another AI? Whisperflow doesn't actually serve as an AI for doing searches or creating things. It's a drafting tool.
It's in a way a drafting tool. It's that paralegal or secretary that you may have used at your firm in the past that you used to go like you would literally dictate to type things up, and it will go and do that. But you download it on the operating system level, so it's agnostic as to, like, it uses AI in that it's understanding the context and actually transcribing what you actually want. But it's not like going off and doing the substantive work like some of these other AI tools that are definitely available and very useful to lawyers now, that are HIPAA certified, SOC 2 and ISO compliant, right? That are highly secure and private. But so Whisperflow, you use it in any tool, anywhere, in your email, in AI solutions, text messages. You can download the iOS or Android app. I mean, it's everywhere. And it is hard though when you're so used to just typing to start speaking. So like even I'm still learning to adapt a new habit. I haven't used more than 2,000 words a month yet. Once you do, you have to start paying the $12 a month. So like I'm trying to change my habits to start doing that. And I've seen somebody show me their word count on Whisperflow, who's like an engineer, a software engineer. And last month they used 127,000 words. I mean, it's unbelievable how you could use a tool like this. Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you got to lend to this conversation? You and all of us here are, for the most part, us solo practitioners. So we've got something in common here.
Yeah, I would agree with Matthew on Whisperflow. I use it every day, and I definitely fall in the category of lawyers who dictate, and it's the best in class by far. I mean, I actually subscribe to it because I do exceed the word count, and it actually shows you the words per minute, which is nice to see how much time you're saving. But you can't say enough about it. And I won't belabor it because I know Matthew just gave a great presentation on it, but it's really, really good, really, really good. The approach I take to using AI, especially as a small firm, is I tend to go straight to what I would call frontier models, but like a model available through, for instance, OpenAI or through Anthropic. And the reason I like to do that is because A, you're fully in charge of the prompt, and B, you get the access to the cutting edge model. A lot of times when you're using a legal software wrapper like a Vincent or something like that, it costs too much for them to pay for the tokens necessary to use, for instance, like ChatGPT 5.4. So you're actually using a dated model and probably not getting the results that you would otherwise get. And one thing that those wrappers do bring to the table is they load the case law in, and they have kind of prompts in the background that tell the AI that it's a lawyer and it's creating a legal document and so on. But all of those things are really, really simple to kind of bring over to using a frontier model. And one of the things that I've shown lawyers in the past that always I think gets a lot of interest is how I start my research. So I'm going to share my screen real fast and kind of show how simple it is. So this is your basic ChatGPT screen. First, you can select your model up here. And so I'll just leave it at auto because the other ones tend to take a little bit of time. But all you have to do when you're starting a research project, what I do is I go to IICLE's website and I have access to their CLE. They used to come in black binders. I'm sure every lawyer over 10 years of practice knows exactly what I'm talking about. Well, they have all of those available as PDFs now. And so I download the PDF, and let's say probate. I don't do much probate. It's something that I wouldn't have a whole lot of experience in, but I'll load the probate CLE, and this is the entire PDF, into the context window of the model that I'm using. And then I'll ask it something like, and I prepared this prompt already, but I'll ask it something like, tell me how to open an independent administration. But one thing I want to point out about this prompt that I always do is I tell it, you're a lawyer in Illinois. you're a probate lawyer, you're an excellent researcher, and those things may seem a little silly to type in, but they actually go a long, long way in getting better results. And then I tell it what I want it to do. Use the attached materials to explain how to open an independent administration. And what this will do is instruct the AI to just rely on that PDF. And in doing so, you're going to drastically cut down on hallucinations. And in addition to cutting down on hallucinations, it'll also give you a citation to where it's pulling the information from the document that you uploaded. So when you see right here, if I click on that, it'll actually show me where in the document it's pulling that information from. So it gives you a really simple way to go back, check the work that it's doing. So not only are you avoiding hallucinations, but you're also capable, or you're provided with the means to go back and check the work, which anybody who's been using AI in their practice knows that rule 1, 2, and 3 is make sure that what the AI is telling you is accurate. So again, just kind of a microcosm of an example of how you can use the frontier models, which are more powerful, but also limit it to the type of law. And you can load cases in there, you can load statutes, anything that you want. And that's one of the ways that I've been using it pretty regularly.
That's it. Go back to that screen, the opening screen. I just want to give everybody a point on that. And that is on, when you're starting a chat, go back to starting a chat. And then top right-hand corner, see that? Tell people what that means, that top right-hand corner. Right there.
This right here is a temporary chat, so it doesn't load it into your. I have memory turned off by default, but if you have memory turned on, this is kind of like a incognito mode in a browser, where it won't store the chat. It won't use it to train models and so on. Now, those are all settings you can have off by default, and if you're subscribed, and I do, but this also keeps it out of your chat history and so on. So it's a great tool if you want to have a temporary chat that doesn't get remembered by your local interface.
Good, great. Nelson, you have any suggestions on the models that you're using?
No, I mean, I think, everything Matthew and Jonathan said is right, is correct. I do think that there's a difference in how you can really get the most value out of these AI tools depending on the nature of your practice. So I think so I do mostly transactional work. I don't do any litigation, right? And I deal with high growth venture capital backed startups in the AI and financial technology spaces. So most of the information that I'm handling on a day-to-day basis or thinking about is kind of crown jewel type stuff. So I deal with a lot of intellectual property. So I'm very judicious about even the questions that I input as prompts into these AI systems. So for work, I just use Copilot because it's already integrated into my Microsoft 365 subscription. And I'm really big, generally speaking, when it comes to tools, on keeping things as low friction as possible, right? So the low hanging fruit was just using Copilot. Personally, I use Gemini because I've had a Gmail account since 2004, I think. So Google already knows everything there is to know about me, including things I probably don't want to know. So I figured I may as well just, actually leverage the AI to my advantage and unlock some of those secrets, so to speak. So no, I don't really have anything to add other than, I think for litigation, there's a lot of information that is often public that you can kind of use to your advantage with respect to filings. But if you're dealing with kind of like more bespoke counseling, which I would say is a large part of my practice, it can be difficult to kind of figure out how best to leverage these tools with respect to things like actually producing written work product for a client. I mean, I use AI all the time for research purposes, especially kind of like a maybe, like a research assistant or associate that doesn't get tired, right? So I'm feeding it, the information that I want it to use for research purposes, whether it's hyperlinks or PDFs, etc. And then I just kind of pull on the thread of interest for a particular client situation and kind of go down the rabbit hole and help me build out, a better knowledge base for whatever the issue is that the client's facing.
All right. I'm I've been using Clio for our CRM for a couple of years now. And I just started using Clio's AI model, Clio Work. And I'm really kind of surprised. It's a combination of Vincent and VLEX. So I have more confidence using something like that with VLEX as the research background than doing something else like even Perplexity, as good as it might be, but especially ChatGPT. But people in my office are using ChatGPT Pro for any number of reasons. One of the lawyers considers Chat to be her buddy, where she could talk to it anytime. I've actually talked to two people in the last 2 months that use ChatGPT like a counselor, asking it questions about what they should do. It's
Well,
interesting.
Gio, not to interrupt here, but well, actually, I do mean to interrupt. This is a good segue to a point that I wanted to raise, but finish your thought.
No, go ahead, pick it up.
Yeah, if I could just share my screen, let me make sure that I get into. I don't have a ton of slides, just 5, but let's see. So should be able to see this. Okay, so there's a study that just came out of Stanford, I believe, that is all about how these AI systems
Can you
are.
speak up a little?
Yeah, can you hear me better now? Maybe
Just talk a little louder.
All right, hold on a second. Oh, I see the issue. Okay, is that better?
Much.
Yep. All right. The microphone was wrong. Yeah. So a study just came out of Stanford that proved that these AI systems essentially function as sycophants. So they are primed just from the way that they are designed to tell you what you want to hear. And why that's important, especially if you're using it as a counselor, is say, for example, you're having an argument with your spouse, and the prompt that you put into the system is, my wife and I have been arguing, married, my wife and I have been arguing about X, Y, and Z. And, how do you think I should approach this? Well, the system, just the way the architecture is kind of set up for these large language models, because they're focused on maintaining your attention and keeping you engaged with the model, is going to tell you what you want to hear. So it'll give you different answers to that kind of conflict situation than if you were to prompt it in a manner such as, I have two friends that are a couple and they're having a disagreement about X, Y, and Z. So you're inputting the same information, et cetera, but you've depersonalized it so that the model doesn't think that it's giving you information that's personally relevant to you. And so it'll get you different information that's a little more accurate, and not completely biased, so to speak. But it can also be really problematic, with respect to the practice of law, if you're trying to use some of these models to kind of suss out the strength of particular arguments. If you take, if you agree with this research result that the AI kind of wants you to be happy with the outputs that you're receiving, it's likely going to give you more positive feedback than is necessarily realistic with respect to that particular argument that you're feeding the system. So that doesn't mean that you don't use these systems. It just means that you really need to be very hyper vigilant about how you're inputting information, how you're phrasing questions to it. Jonathan had the example there, where you're prompting the AI to assume a certain persona, right? And do all of those things and always just kind of maintain that kind of critical thinking, active, not just, hey, I've been using good results and just assuming it's always going to give you good.
There's also, I've not used it, but I'm on the plaintiff side of personal injury. So I get a lot of calls and a lot of presentations from folks. And, I watched one that was done by Even Up. Again, I didn't end up using it, but I'll tell you, from a demand preparation standpoint, the things that they were showing were really impressive. Medical chronologies, preparation of the demand itself, really incredible. I mean, it was I was pretty close to pulling the trigger, but when I did the cost analysis on it, it would have been something like $70,000 a year for the amount we would have used it because they do an a la carte like by case. And I figured, at that price, you could almost hire somebody, teach them how to use AI really well and have the same type of result. But if you're interested in a personal injury specific AI, that's the most impressive one that I've seen.
I think that well, first of all, if you're in that space, I think you have to be a member of Illinois Trial Lawyers, and their email server is really good in providing information and help to the other lawyers. One of the coolest products I saw in terms of depositions was a product called Deposely. It gathers up all the information that you have about your case, and then it even gives you an outline for the deposition. But more impressively, it will second chair you during the deposition. So if the deponent gives a statement that's inconsistent with what's in the document, Deposely will call up that document and remind you that that statement is inconsistent while the deposition is in progress. Some of these tools are just absolutely amazing. And it's just a matter of your own creativity. Do you guys want to add? Oh, one more thing about personal injury. Jeff, I would look at FileVine. It's really good for personal injury, and it's got an internal AI component to it. Guys, got anything else to add? We're coming up against the clock here. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do. So I'm an advisor to an industry organization called the Advanced AI Society. We've been standing it up for a little over a year now. And what we're trying to do is bring together kind of an industry standard for the use of AI under this idea of proof of control. And what reminded me of this was something Jonathan said with respect to cloud computing. Initially people were concerned about cloud computing, right? But something called the Cloud Security Alliance was eventually started, and all of the major players joined, and they agreed on standards on how data would be handled in the cloud and certain privacy guarantees, et cetera. And once the Cloud Security Alliance became widespread and kind of all the major players were at the table having conversations to kind of address people's concerns, that's when cloud computing really took off, right? We're at a similar stage with respect to AI, and our thinking behind the Advanced AI Society is with this idea of proof of control, where you're focused on privacy, portability, and verifiability with respect to data and how it's handled by these AI models. If we can get enterprise kind of aligned and create industry standards on how all of this should be used, that's when we're really going to see kind of like the AI economy take off. This is extremely complicated by something called AI agents, which is beyond the scope of this particular conversation. But if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, start looking up AI. Start looking up AI agents. You can think of them like little robot computer helpers, so to speak, that are usually purpose-built for a particular task. The difficulty is sometimes, they can go rogue. And there was allegedly a Amazon kind of outage related to AI agents recently that were not sufficiently kind of vetted, et cetera. But, once we kind of all this gets sorted out, I think it'll look silly in 10, 15, 20 years that, well, you mean you didn't trust these AI systems, right? But we're still at the beginning of the ball game, so to speak.
15 to 20 years. Oh, no.
Sorry.
Maybe 6 months.
Maybe sooner.
Months. 6 months.
Yeah, well, inertia is a real thing, and large organizations are like very large ships. It's hard to turn them.
Well, things are happening so fast. It's impossible to keep up. But more importantly, for the message for everybody is that because it's happening so fast, you cannot afford to wait before jumping on the bandwagon. It's really important to get ahead of this. I'm going to open it up to, well, there's a point, Matt made the point here in the chat box about the tech show. Let me give a strong suggestion to anybody who really wants to get into this. go to the tech show. It's free. It's a free pass to get to the exhibitors who come out with all their new products. It is a gas to walk around the exhibit hall and see what's being offered now. And it's just amazing at some of the products that are coming out and being offered. And it just gives you a flavor of how much is out there. Just, again, be wary of the shiny new penny. Anybody have, we're going to open it up to the floor. If anybody's got any questions for the last couple of minutes. Or how about snide remarks? No snide remarks? My goodness.
Hey,
Yeah,
Nelson.
one Geo. And Nelson, you were talking about the sycophantic nature of like the LLMs and whatever. Have you found a way around that? Because it drives me nuts. When I'm trying to bounce something off and it's, oh, that's a great idea, or taking a 180 turn right now is a great idea, and there's nothing I can do to stop it from doing that.
Yeah, I think trying your best to depersonalize your prompts in there and giving it hypothetical situations, almost kind of engaging in sort of a Socratic dialogue with it. I hate to get back to my law professor teaching habits there, but look, I use these systems every single day. I just always have a I'm on alert when I use them, if that makes sense, right? Where if I feel like, well, this sounds a little too good to be true, it probably is in some fashion. Rarely have I encountered anything that's just flat out wrong, right? But then again, I'm not, I think that is more prevalent in litigation practice where, all of a sudden it's citing cases it doesn't exist, right? That problem probably will never be fully eliminated anytime soon. So, if you're very, I don't know, if you have a well-defined universe of what you're looking for and you go in and you just kind of like, hey, here's the hypothetical, and you don't try and lead the LLM to kind of where you want to go, I think you have better luck. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in there, but that's what I'd say to that, Joe.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Matthew.
yeah. So my solution to this problem is I just don't use those tools, right? Like try Perplexity. It's multi-model. It gives you a citation to every single thing that it comes back with. Like one of the reasons I like Perplexity, Notebook, and Paxton is they give you citations, like with every single.
I'm not even talking about
paragraph.
legal work. I'm talking about I'm just doing the presentation or something, and it'll, oh, that's a great idea. And I'm like, well, I didn't think it was a great idea. Tell me it's stupid.
So Joe, I'll say Perplexity is amazing for that, especially if you're willing to pay the $200 a year, $20 a month, because not only can you vibe with Perplexity and come up with a great presentation idea or framework or outline, but then you could say, now go make the slide deck. Boom, it's going to go make the slide deck, right? And then you could just vibe with it, and you could just have a conversation about change these slides to say this, update it to do that. And when you pay the $20 a month for Perplexity Pro, it integrates with Wolfram Alpha's API, which is like giving a probabilistic model a calculator to be deterministic. So it's actually able to do math, unlike some of these other AI tools. And so like I've created slide decks in Perplexity and amortization tables and schedules. And it's been checked and the math has always been checked and verified, and it's correct. And so highly, highly recommend Perplexity and just give it a spin, even the free version, but for $20 for 1 month to play around with it, give it a go, and you might not run into the same problems.
I cannot agree with you more.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is, never underestimate prompting, in the sense that, you'll notice at the beginning of the prompt that I showed, and I always do, I tell the system what it is, but you can also include things like, don't be sycophantic, be brutally honest. And if you include those as part of your prompt, I think, at least in my experience, I get much better results. So even little simple tricks like that go a long, long way in stopping the sycophancy of the models.
All right,
Okay.
thanks, gents.
Any other questions? Snide remarks? Okay. Well, if you want CLE credit, this is how you get it. Send an email to the NWSBA thanking them. Include your ARDC number. And again, credit is only available to members of the NWSBA. And if you're not a member of the NWSBA, too bad. You won't get anything unless you join. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Nelson. I always enjoy working with you guys. And we've had some great conversations. And maybe we'll see you at Tech Show. Actually, maybe not. I'm having surgery next week. So just another joint replacement. At this point in my life, what's another joint replacement? All right, guys. Thank you, everybody. And good health.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.